Hey guys, it's Gaijin Hunter. There are only a few more days left of the alpha demo for Team Ninja's upcoming game called Nioh. In this video I want to cover a few hints that I think will allow you to play at a much higher level and the game doesn't really do a good job of explaining. First up is Ki Pulse. Now notice after you do a large attack what happens to your stamina or your ki gauge. It goes down a red amount for how much that attack took. Then watch the little glowing thing that goes up that bar. During this point, if you hit the R1 button, you'll restore stamina, which allows you to recover from the attack a lot faster and with more stamina. Here's how it looks. This allows you to chain attacks over and over again, which is really good if you're behind a boss and have an opening. This is also a key concept for the hit and away technique that I'll be showing later in this video. Okay, next up, proper understanding of guard evades. Now there are three different positions. This is the high position. Now you generally don't want to be guarding or moving around this position because the evades, if you look at them, are very big and they take a lot of ki or a lot of stamina. This can lead to you running out, especially if you try to counter back up with an attack. Now if you switch to mid stance, you get a kind of a funky move. I find it a little fast, but it does still take up a bunch of stamina. But if you're moving while you're guarding, your stamina will slowly replenish, which is kind of a special feature of the mid stance. And low stance is awesome. Look at how much ki that you use, and you can move around quite a bit. This is your default for when you want to be evading around monsters, evading around enemies, and trying to find an opening. Now if you ever find yourself right after an attack you have to go into a guard, you won't replenish any of the stamina that you just lost. If you're in there though, just switch over to mid stance while you're guarding, and you'll activate that natural ability to restore your ki. And then just switch back to whatever mode that you want. It's a really important technique, especially if you're up against something really big and daunting and you're trying to find the right timing. Next up, proper hit and away tactics. After you do a large attack with your upper stance, go ahead and switch to lower stance and then go right into an evade. Not only will you replenish a lot of ki, which we'll talk a little bit about, but you also go into a much more defensive moving fast. Here's what it looks like again. You do the high attack and in the middle of it, switch to lower position, and then press B to evade backwards. You end up essentially doing a huge attack, getting back behind it, and not using any of your ki. The lower position is special in that instead of pressing R1 to do a ki pulse, all you have to do is evade. So after any attack, if you evade, you'll replenish your stamina. This is why it works. Okay, let's demo out and see how switching between lower position and high position are really fun. Let's get rid of one of these enemies, we don't need two of them. And here we are in lower position. This is really good again if you want the enemy to run out of stamina, or if you just want to find a good position to switch into high and then strike. Okay, here's what it looks like. Get out of the way, switch to high and then back to low. Now here we didn't evade because he was dead, but it does do a really nice hit and away here. We go away, we go up and down, and then back to lower position. Notice we lost very little ki. The next tip is optimal equipment. Now the game has really bad UI right now, so it's kind of hard to understand how to always be equipping the most optimal equipment. So when you go through here, if you look on the bottom right, it says R3 newest rarity, whatever, ignore that. Underneath the list of all your weapons is what you're currently on. So right now it's sorted by rarity. What you want to do is sort it by not newest, but ability. If you sort it by ability, then just go and pick the very highest one, and that'll be your most optimal choice. Then at that point, just look below it and look at the few choices. If it has very similar attack or defense, then choose the one that has the status effects that you want. But in general, as long as you're choosing the top one, you're generally going to be in good shape. That will fluctuate as you level up, so always go back and double check that you're in the optimal gear. This is also really important when you have too many items and you want to sell stuff. One bad thing, and again about the UI, is when you go into here to make offering, which is selling equipment, it doesn't use this recent sorting technique that you were just using. So right now it's on newest again. Tap it again and now you notice it's on ability. Then all you have to do is go to the very bottom and then just start selling stuff. Generally, as long as you have a full page or so of equipment, you're pretty much fine. So I just go ahead and I sell everything. One other good tip is as you're selling equipment, you'll notice that you'll earn elixirs. Now you only get 3 elixirs in stage 1 every time you die and you restore. So these are consumables, but if you sell a bunch of equipment before the boss, you could have up to 10 elixirs in your inventory, which will make things a lot easier. Now I do this all the time. I go in and I sell all my weapons down to a full page. It's a good symbol that their UI is really bad. But it's good to know how to do this so that you can have some extra Amanita so you can level up, and you can earn some extra items for bosses. Okay, my last tip, and this really helps for that hit and away tactic, is unlocking the skill called Flux. Now if you notice for most weapons when you go into the skill tree, it starts out with like upper stance, middle stance, low stance skills. So if you don't care about low stance, you're generally not going to the very bottom. But for Katana, I have no idea why they did this, but you have your high stance, your mid stance, and your low stance skills. The very bottom is one row of skills that are not dependent on position. The first one is an incredibly unmemorable ability called Sword Ki. Trust me, it's not that good, but it only takes one skill point to unlock, and the reason you want to do that is for the next one. And this skill is called Flux. It says changing to another stance on a successful ki pulse increases the amount of ki recovered, which probably makes absolutely no sense, so let me explain what that does. Now if you recall, if you use R1 after an attack, you'll do a ki pulse, but watch how much it recovers. It only recovers as much as there's white in the gauge. So we attack here, it goes down to 93, and we did it a little too fast, so we only went back to 109. Now watch what happens when you do a stance change, which also uses R1. Notice we did it a little early, but yet we restored more ki than we did when we did the normal ki pulse. This is what Flux does. It certainly is a game changer. It allows you to do a switch into ki pulse much faster than normal and restore all of your ki. That's awesome. Okay, finally let's go see how you can use these things in real action. Go ahead and get rid of this guy. Just get in the habit of switching positions after you do an attack. It definitely helps with managing your ki, and it helps with a whole bunch of other stuff as well, like getting into a lower defensive position. I do recommend that you play around with low position and get used to the evades, because they really are, I think, the key to unlocking openings on monsters. For example, this enemy here, we're going to go ahead and let him run out of his own ki. So if you take on a lower position, we'll let him swing at us, and now as he's out, hit him really fast. He'll stagger, go up and press triangle, and you'll do a visceral attack. All this stuff, all these heavy attacks, and switching to low position, we've lost very little ki. Nice high tactic that I hope you guys get used to, and I think it'll make the game a lot easier. Good luck on getting your Mark of the Conqueror, and happy hunting.